Hey, so knowing where you want to go can be just as important as the work you put in to actually get there. Uh, Knowing where you want to go is the trick, right? How do you know exactly what you want? In my journey, it's been a lot of figuring out what you don't like. It's been a lot of figuring out where you don't want to be. And then you kind of align yourself that way. You put your back to the wall that is your current life, and then you shoot forward in the other direction. And yeah, I mean, that teaches you a lot about what you don't want to do, but figuring out what you want. All right, just a second. That's the trick, right? How do you know what you want? How do you know what you want to go towards? What what do you want from life? What are you building towards? What do you want to make? Where do you want to end up? Uh, I honestly don't have a good answer for how to figure that out. So much of my life has been just like figure it out as you go along. Like you're going through a thing and you realize like this part right here is something I don't want to do. Like, okay, great. You know something to turn your back on and then move away from it. Like, okay. For example, where do you want to live when you grow up? You know, what what kind of lifestyle do you want? What kind of house? What kind of job? What kind of whatever it is? Where do you want to be when you grow up? I love phrasing questions that way because it's how we were asked as kids, and it's so ridiculous now that we're adults, but it gets the point across. When my wife was in grad school, she went to a math conference, and I went and met her there because I was, working at the time, and I had the weekend off, so I flew in to surprise her, and she's there at this math conference. The university pays for where she's staying, right? You could go anywhere you want. Some kids, went to the local motel wherever the math conference was being held. In this case, it was in San Diego. Uh, so I fly into San Diego. I go to see my wife, who's my fiance at the time, and she's staying in the nicest hotel I've ever seen. If you think of a Hilton, you have the right idea. I mean, there's a doorman. There's a doorman. I grew up in a place where the idea of someone being a doorman is like, it's just bonkers. Like, it makes no sense to me. What do? They open the door for you to go into the building? It makes no sense. But there's a doorman at the hotel. You walk in, the floor is covered in marble. I should rephrase that. It's made of marble. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just stone, and it's buffed to look like marble. It doesn't matter because there's marble pillars in the foyer. There's a foyer. You might not even know what that word means. I didn't know what that word means. It's basically just like a front room, right? In the lobby, there's marble pillars. The people behind the desk, they're all suited up all nice. They're like, "Hello, Mr. Luke. What kind of room are you looking for?" They do a turn down service every single day. They pick up the room for her, make it all nice. There's a chocolate on the pillow, not like one of those Andes mints. Okay, we're talking the dollar plus per chocolate. I mean, in today's inflationary environment, who knows how much it costs? But she's staying at such a nice place. And I think about that place. I think about that hotel. It's so weird. What a weird memory to focus on, to think back on. But I think about that hotel she stayed at during that math conference and how nice it was. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of James Bond. It reminds me of tailored suits. Like you would go in and you have your tailored suit and it's very fancy and it's very high class, if you will. There's a certain appeal to that kind of lifestyle. Not the flashiness, not the sending a message with an item, like having a Rolex watch or driving a Ferrari. It sends a message, right? You you display yourself to the world with a certain message by having those items, right? No, no, no. That's not what I'm talking about. Like it was a nice environment. It felt like a high class environment. And thinking of that, thinking of like traveling to Switzerland and staying in the Alps. Are the Alps in Switzerland, by the way? I'm just ignorant enough that if you told me I'm wrong, I'd probably believe you. Uh, and you stay at some hotel that was as nice as this place, if not nicer. It's like some luxury. It's like only the rich would ever experience it. And you have your tailored suit on and your Rolex watch, and you'd be driving your Ferrari. Part of that lifestyle appeals to me. Part, like it's just fun. It's cool in a way. Everything is so relaxed and uptight at the same time. Fancy. Have you ever seen a marble pillar? It looks cool. Everything's shiny. Everything's very clean. Have you ever had a tailored suit? It feels good. When you wear a tailored suit, you grow 2 inches. It's amazing. You're more confident than you've ever been. It's the most amazing clothing you've ever worn. I saw I had a tailored suit and I sold it because in the dark times before the empire, I had to sell it to make rent. Like we were going through some real struggles. We sold everything. Uh, but I've had a tailored suit. It's amazing. And I think of that tailored suit. I think of that hotel. And part of me wants it. Part of me wants that lifestyle. Someone walks by, with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, as everyone is mingling. You eat caviar, you know. The when you go to a restaurant, they read off the menu. They read off the menu from memory. They're like, yes, the four things we're serving tonight are these four things. And that's just the way the restaurant is. You can't order chicken fingers. Okay? Like I think about that kind of lifestyle or that environment. I'm trying to paint a picture for you. I think about that fancy, high class lifestyle. And part of me wants it. Part of me wants to live in that. Maybe not live forever, but at least experience it. It's very clean. It's very formal. It's extravagant but also impressive. I mean, the architecture of that hotel alone was really cool. However, I also spent 8 months working for a cattle ranch. There were 600 different animals that relied on me being awake at 6 a.m., finishing work at 6 p.m., just to make sure that those animals survived, that they thrived, that they lived, right? We would take sick cows, calves at the time. We would bring them in, okay? We built a bunch of hutches for them. A hutch is like a tiny box that they stay in, a series of boxes. If you imagine a shed split into individual little units, you have the right idea. We would build hutches, we'd buy sick cows, we would nurse them back to health, grow them up to a certain age, and sell them. There was no slaughtering going on in this cattle ranch. There was nothing like that. We just bought cows. It was like an arbitrage deal, right? You bring in a bunch of cows, you raise them for a little bit, you sell them off. And there were pigs there, chickens, a few milk cows. I got to milk cows. That was quite the experience. My grandfather ran a milk business. He had a bunch of milk cows. He sold milk in the local town. That's what my grandpa did. And so it was great to work in that environment. I felt connected to that grandfather of mine. It was so spiritual is the best way to describe it. Because every day you work, there's no day off. You don't take a day off because the animals will die, or they'll get sick or they'll just be really hungry and break out of their hutches or what have you, right? You are responsible for those 600 lives. Whether they're a chicken or a cow, it doesn't matter. Like you're responsible for that, and every day is work. And you're in the middle of nowhere, okay? You have to drive 30 minutes to get to the small town that's close to you. It's I've experienced that lifestyle, and it's very different from that Hilton hotel you're imagining. It's very different, but it's fulfilling. It's very fulfilling. Everything you do has a tangible result at the end of it. Everything you do is fulfilling in that, like, you're rebuilding a fence. You're mucking out one of those hutches, a stall, or whatever it is. You're getting out all the poop, all the bad hay, straw, and you're replacing it with fresh stuff. You're doctoring cows that are very sick, like very sick. I learned cow medicine, if you will. Don't ask me now. I could not tell you any medication that's ever used for cows at all. But I learned that at the time. And you feel so connected to nature. You feel so much calmer than you do living in a major city. There's so much more nature around you. Even though you're hustling, from 6 a.m. to like 11 a.m., you're doing morning chores. Then there's some time off. You can get some stuff done if you have little chores you got to do, or maybe it's just free time. But then afternoon chores are going to come again anytime between like 3 and 4 until 6 or 7 p.m. Right? So I think about that life on the ranch, middle of nowhere, nighttime. Nighttime, you hear coyotes in every direction. Just, I don't know numbers. I don't know. Maybe there were three of them. Maybe there were 200. I don't know. But you listen to coyotes yipping, yowling, howling. I don't know the right word, but they're all around the cattle ranch, just talking to each other. And it's not scary. It's not scary. They're just being coyotes. You listen to that all night, or at least, for a while. And you look up at the stars and you see every star. Every star. There's no light pollution. You see the sky. It's amazing. In the middle of the day, when you're done with all your morning chores, before the night chores, I used to go for runs. I'd run up the mountain, run across fields, run on back, get ready for afternoon chores. It was so calming, so wonderful. And I tell you all this. I tell you the story of my wife at the math conference in a wonderful Hilton hotel. I tell you the time of me being on a cattle ranch. Because when I look out at what I want with my life, where do I want to go? It's hard for me to choose what direction to move toward. I may not be a multi-billionaire one day and I could just go to Switzerland and like live in some Hilton hotel over there, travel the world in my Armani suits and with my Rolex watch and my Ferrari. Like, that may never happen. However, I may be able to travel. I may be able to experience those Hilton hotels momentarily. Is that what you want? Is that, talking to myself, like, is that what you want long term? Like, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, yeah, we're traveling over to XYZ place, XYZ country. We're going to go see some stuff. We're going to stay in these particular locations. And there's going to be marble floors. And I'm going to wear my tux. That's appealing. There is an appeal to that. Because it's polite society. Because it's clean. Because it's non-threatening and flashy is not quite the right word. It's the nicer things of life. However, the best things in life are free. I really, really mean that. There is no amount of money you could pay me to sacrifice hugs from my daughter. Like, there's no better memory than hanging out with my kids. Like, at all. There's none. There's none. And do you know how great it is to run up that mountain in the middle of the day when I'm living on the ranch? Do you know how great it is to just be out in nature, to listen to the coyotes, to look up at the stars, to be on your own little homestead? It wasn't mine at the time, but where do I want to go with life? What if I had my own piece of land out in the middle of nowhere? Who cares if it's only one bedroom? Who cares if it's a little shack that I later like build up on? I could build a house. I don't know how to do that right now, but I'd figure it out. You build some walls. You figure out the plumbing. You figure out the electrician work. Like, it's not impossible. Other people have done it. I could do it. And who's to say I wouldn't hire someone to help me? You know what I mean? Like, you could have your own homestead. There's a lot of empty land. You could be far removed from major cities, from the hustle and bustle, from the incessant horns and yelling and litter and crime. There's a lot of crime. In both of these scenarios, take note of that. At that fancy Hilton hotel, whether it's in Switzerland or San Diego, it doesn't matter. Crime's probably not readily apparent, right? When you're on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, what crime are you talking about? You have a disgruntled coworker who you're arguing with. There's still no crime. Maybe there's a fist fight. I mean, that comes with that territory. Yeah, we had some spicy moments, but there's no crime. No one's burning the homestead down. When I think of major cities, that's one of the key things I think about: crime. And not knowing which direction I want to go. Do you want to go towards that James Bond lifestyle in the Hilton Hotel? Do you want to go towards the homestead, raising cattle? I don't know if I want to be a cattle farmer, but just out in the middle of nowhere, right? I spoke with my wife about this just earlier today, actually. Like, what do you want? And we're both on the same page. We want more quiet. We want a slower lifestyle. We want safety for our kids. We could send them outside the house. They could go explore for miles and not worry. Well, apart from bears, and a few other animals out in nature, that fits the homestead, right? I mean, you have to look out for mountain lions depending on where you are. You have to look out for moose if you go far enough north. But if I want to send my kids out into a field all day and they go just explore and find whatever it is they're going to find, the way kids do, you don't do that in a major city. And I don't see that in the foyer of the Hilton. I see that in a little plot of land in the middle of podunk nowhere. And it's calm and it's peaceful. And at night you hear the coyotes and you look up and you see every star. It's not bad. It's not bad. I think that's what I want with my life. But I think about these things, right? I think about these, like, where do you want to go, Luke? Where do you want to end up? What do you want from this adventure? Because you could do both. I'm in the USA. Like, we'll figure it out. I may not be a billionaire one day. I'm fine with that. But you're telling me you can't go stay in a Hilton once a month? Come on. You ever seen The Departed? You ever seen that? Okay, there's a great scene in that. The mafia is putting the rundown on one of their local businesses, right? And he's talking to the guy and he's saying, like, this is America. If you don't make enough money, you're up, and he insults the guy. So what are you gonna do? And he hits the guy. It's violent. It's a violent scene. And the guy says, "Make more money," right? And the mafia member says, "That's the spirit." Like, you're in America. Figure it out. We could have a fancy lifestyle, even tangentially to our life. Even just like every now and then, we have something real fancy. Sure, sure, sure. But deep in my heart, deep right in my soul, right here, where you can't see on the camera, but like deep in there, what I really, really want is to live on that ranch again. I imagine that ranch in my head. It could be any configuration of nature living, of removed from the cityscape, of far out on the outskirts of the small town. Deep in my heart of hearts, I want that slow country lifestyle where I have to fix the fence, where I have to figure out why the well is drying up, in a bad situation, where I see all those stars at night. So think about that in your own life. What do you want? Where do you want to end up? Because everything I'm doing is going to lead me to the middle of nowhere with a tiny to huge plot of land, depending on how successful I am, right? And I'm going to live there quietly, peacefully, happily. But if you don't know where you're going, how do you steer your ship, the ship of your life, towards that thing? Take care of yourself.